Jin-Woo used to be the weakest E-rank hunter. Hunters are people who awakened with special abilities when dungeon gates began appearing 10 years prior. After a harrowing experience in one of those dungeons, he awoke in the hospital and realized he had been selected by the system as the only hunter with the ability to level up. Though trying to keep this under wraps, after a run-in with a murderous agent, he might not be able to hide his true nature. After Jin-Woo slays the dungeon boss, Jin-Chul shows up, having been informed about the incident. He notes that Jin-Woo was the E-rank from the double dungeon incident, and that one of the slain was Dun Suk Hwang, the older brother of the infamous Dong Su Hwang. When Jin-Woo gets home, he tells his sister she doesn't have to worry about their bills, at least for a while. He's got them covered. She thinks it's a bit strange, but is still pretty chill about everything. When he goes to have some brewskis, he receives a message notifying him of toxins being nullified. Turns out he can't get drunk because of the regeneration buff from the temple. It keeps detoxifying him. This also explains his new limbs. He receives a call from Jin-Ho, the trust fund baby. Turns out he's the second son of the owner of Eugene Construction. He wants Jin-Woo to join a strike team to clear 19 more dungeons, to fulfill the criteria to become a guild master. And since the 7 S ranks in the country are all occupied, he needs someone else who's crazy strong. He'll even throw in 30 billion as payment. But clearing dungeons with a full party would be pretty risky, and Jin-Woo wouldn't remain anonymous, so he turns down the offer. If he can become an S rank, or something even more powerful, the money will follow. In a last-ditch effort, Jin-Ho promises to take his secret to the grave if he agrees. Still, no dice. Elsewhere, Dong Su Hwang learns of his brother's murder. He asks his secretary what the penalty for killing someone abroad is. He's gunning for both Jin-Ho and Jin-Woo. The next day, Jin-Woo and his sister go for a run. When he decides to go on ahead, he discovers that he can continue the daily quest beyond the mandatory workout, to a point. If he doubles the values, he receives a choice between a blessed and a cursed loot box. Choosing the blessed one nets him another key to the Demon's Castle, an S-rank dungeon. Apparently, there's a magical cure, the elixir of life, inside. He might be able to save his mom, but it might be too good to be true. Screw it, let's go. Well, welcome to hell. He immediately runs into the first enemy, Cerberus. Thinking he's got this in the bag, he launches an assault, only to get batted around like a chew toy. Even with all his buffs, the dog isn't going down without a fight, but he might be. It rages, doubling its stats, and starts flinging him around, taking huge chunks out of his health. During the melee, he loses his teleportation stone. Even after a full recovery and remembering he can buy pots in the store, it's barely enough to keep him alive. He lands on the poison he got from killing the snake boss. His regeneration might nullify the debuff. Can't hurt to try. Rage wears off, and the hit he got in on one of its eyes takes effect. But the dog bites back. Jin-Woo's got under 200 HP remaining. With the last of his strength, he drives the dagger into the beast's eye as many times as he can until it goes down. He levels a few times, receives the elixir's recipe, and a key to the castle. At least he knows his limits now. The castle can wait. Time to get stronger. The next day, he meets with Jin-Ho and accepts his offer if he agrees to be a 2-man team. They'll hire temps to fill the 8-person requirement, but they'll just hang outside while the 2 of them move in to clear dungeons. Later, Jin-Ho talks with his father on his way to try to recruit an S rank to be his brother's partner. He wants to utilize hunters and the guild infrastructure to take advantage of the resources within the gates. As it stands, the top 5 existing guilds have all the control. Jin-Woo gets a notification for a D-rank dungeon. He's still waiting for Jin-Ho to get organized and needs to level up. He'll have to work with a strike team. Chi-Yul and another hunter from the Temple Run receive the same notification and consider taking the gig. The president and guildmaster of the White Tiger Guild meets with the Hunters Guildmaster, who had kinda manipulated him into a public relations appearance. They both acknowledge that Jin-Ho's dad is making some interesting moves and using some underhanded tactics in doing so. Afterwards, Hei-In-Cha sees the guildmaster and tells him of Eugene's recruitment attempt. She asks about what his business with the White Tiger president was. He wanted to know his thoughts on Jeju Island, the site of their failed attempt to contain a break 3 years prior. The guildmaster can't let it go. They need allies, strength, and public opinion on their side if they're to go back. On his way, Jin-Woo runs into Chi-Yul and they both head to the gate, only to find all the other survivors of the temple incident, including Ju-hee, who's surprised to see him in such good shape. A black van rolls up, and 3 prisoners exit along with Tae-shik, the other association surveillance agent from the hospital. Something stinks. Jin-Woo tells Ju-hee she should sit this one out, but if he's going in, so is she. Chi-Yul asks Jin-Woo if he'd be willing to follow his lead again, and bows in apology. There's no need to apologize. He agrees. The old man is forgiven. In the dungeon, both Chi-Yul and Ju-hee comment on Jin-Woo's new ability not to get stabbed. They take out a welcoming party of goblins and come upon 3 tunnels. Jin-Woo can tell that the boss is through the tunnel on the left, so he, Chi-Yul, and Ju-hee take that tunnel. The other survivors take the middle, and the prisoners with their chaperone take the right. Tae-shik turns to Jin-Woo and smiles before heading in. The agent asks what the prisoners think of going up against humans. Humans, monsters, it's all the same to them. Tae-shik, it turns out, had met with a man whose daughter ended herself after a run-in with these convicts. For a fee, he agrees to deal out the justice the man requests. His report will simply state that 100 goblins showed up out of nowhere. The 2 survivors' path loops back, and they discover Tae-shik choking the final prisoner and then relieve his body of his head. Jin-Woo and the others hear a scream and rush to the source. They find the big guy and the prisoners slain, while the other, soon not to be survivor, sits propped against the wall. With his final breath, he apologizes to Jin-Woo for leaving him to die back in the temple. They realize goblins didn't kill them, just as Tae-shik jumps down from a ledge intent on killing Ju-hee. Jin-Woo catches his arm, taking him by surprise. Chi-Yul picks up a sword and gets a buff from Ju-hee. Despite being a mage, he spent his whole life studying the blade. Chi-Yul gets cut up pretty bad, but he was just waiting for the right moment to blast him with magic. Too bad it wasn't enough. Jin-Woo blocks Tae-shik's killing blow, and Tae-shik realizes he's the same kid from the hospital. He figures he must have reawakened after all. It turns out Tae-shik just likes killing. After Jin-Woo gets cut a few times, the system decides that the assassin is a threat to player and makes killing him mandatory. But the agent has a trick up his sleeve. He can use stealth to virtually disappear. After using a full recovery, something else seems to break in Jin-Woo. He starts tracking the assassin's movements. Then, using murderous intent, he drives his blade deep into his chest. As Tae-shik lay dying, Jin-Woo comes clean. He gets stronger with each battle, and he doesn't even have a class. Outside, Jin-Woo shows up and apologizes for his subordinate's actions. He asks who actually killed Tae-shik, and Jin-Woo thinks he's going to have to expose his secret. But Chi-Yul steps forward and insists that he did it, with the help of their healer, of course. He owes Jin-Woo that much. Jin-Chul accepts this explanation, but is suspicious. The guy who hired the assassin turns himself in, which corroborates their story. Ju-hee tells Jin-Woo that she's done with dungeons. She's moving back home, and the two say their goodbyes. Earlier, Jin-Chul informed him that Dong-Soo Hwang, the S-rank whose brother he killed, is out for his and Jin-Ho's blood. He should probably take his family and leave the country. Just one more reason for him to get stronger. The next day, Jin-Woo meets with Jin-Ho by their first gate and asks what the motley crew is all about. Turns out, Jin-Ho gathered up some down-on-their-luck hunters so they could make some easy, risk-free cash, including Jin-Na's friend Song-Yi. She's E-rank, but it doesn't matter. Only Jin-Ho and Jin-Woo enter the gate. The others just need to chill and keep their mouths shut. Jin-Woo takes out the stealth stone he got from killing Tae-shik, which grants him the skill. He and Jin-Ho enter the gate, and after about an hour, they exit the gate, half the time a full, experienced team would take. They all head to the next dungeon. They have 2 more that day. The strike team continues clearing dungeon after dungeon. Jin-Woo continues to level up and gain new skills, advanced dagger wielding and fatal strike. Should probably put points into intelligence for increased mana. Apparently, he also hit the required level to accept a job change quest. A recruiter for White Tiger catches on to Jin-Woo buying up all the C-rank gates and recognizes Jin-Woo's name. Thinking he's reawakened, he takes his subordinate to scout the rookie, only to find the strike team sitting around. The recruiter sets up a meeting with Jin-Woo. He makes him an offer to join the White Tiger Guild, but did not know what he was up against when he learns about his current deal with Jin-Woo worth 30 billion. Jin-Woo uses his stealth skill to intimidate him and assure his silence about what he thinks he's become. But as a show of good faith, he offers to sell him a few of the gates that he and Jin-Woo had scooped up but were thinking about canceling for 200 million each. Back at the office, the manager finds out that a bunch of C-rank gates are available for a cool 70 million. He got conned. Jin-Woo messages him. They're even now for snooping on him. The next day, Jin-Woo travels out of the city to accept the job change quest that popped up at level 40. A strange portal opens up when he accepts it, and he walks right in. He's notified that he can't use potions or full recoveries in there, and can't leave voluntarily until he completes the quest. A single knight walks towards him. Bring it on. His dagger has no effect. Not even a fatal strike pierces its armor. He remembers the snake and decides to just rip the armor apart with his hands. Works like a charm. It's just too bad he wasted mana with the failed fatal strike. No time to lament. More knights approach. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo has dinner with his family. His brother has been recruiting S ranks abroad and tells Jin-Woo that he knows he's got something going on the side and that he should watch his step. Jin-Woo dispatches the knights using strength, assassins using perception, and archers using agility. However, the mages are tougher. He doesn't have high intellect and can't execute many skills. Despite this, he defeats the enemies and loots some knight armor. It's invisible and doesn't restrict movement. Nice. Opening the giant doors at the end of the hall reveals a throne room with a single knight commander, Egress the Blood Red, an enemy unlike any he's fought before. In addition to matching his speed, he surpasses Jin-Woo in strength. The dagger is useless, so it's time to go hand to hand. The knight seems to have a sense of honor and also discards his weapons. In the city, the White Tiger Guildmaster calls the head of the Hunters Association to thank him for greenlighting a recon mission to Jeju Island. Jin-Woo can't compete in a test of strength, so he uses dash to get an edge. But what little he gets is dull. Egress pounds him into the ground over and over before tossing him at the back wall. Jin-Woo lands on the throne, exhausted. The knight raises his sword, but the player isn't done playing. He hasn't lost quite yet. He takes his dagger out and manages to find an opening to the beast's throat between the knight's helmet and chest plate. Success. Repeat, 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 and dramatically repeat. He's won. Barely. He gets his first S-rank gear, the ruler's hand stone, and a teleportation stone, which usually only happens before a boss. He gets a notification. The job change quest actually only begins now. Portals open and knights come pouring out. A timer starts, not a countdown to endure, but to measure how long he can survive. After 5 minutes, he decides to use the teleportation stone. But before he can, it's knocked out of his hand, like always. He's at his limit, but it's not like he hasn't pushed past it before. As he begins to fade, he hears the voices of detractors who never believed in him. Then, a creepy version of his old self appears and berates him. Just before he's finished off, a notification pops up. He failed to complete his dailies, and it looks like it's midnight. He's transported to the penalty zone, just in time. Apparently, health pots don't work if you're grievously injured, so killing centipedes to level up, it is. He buys a new dagger that's effective against armor, and decides to use the ruler's hand stone. The skill costs 0 MP and lets him physically manipulate objects without touching them. Looks like it's telekinesis time. Well, in this case, size matters. He'll have to level up the skill before he can move mountains. Refreshed and back in the throne room, he finally realizes that it's the mages who are summoning the knights. He targets them, whittling their numbers down. In a last-ditch effort, they combine the armor from the fallen knights to create a golem. It's still not enough to stop him. He kills the remaining mages and easily dispatches the golem. He's notified about his success. He's even got a pile of bonus points. Then a strange string of messages pops up. Something about a shadow army? He doesn't quite follow. He learns his new class is necromancer. At first, he's pissed off, but the system doesn't really give him much of a choice. And after accepting, the extra points net him an upgrade to shadow monarch. He needs to set a command word and settles on arise. Once spoken, the fallen enemies around him rise from the grave. It really is his own shadow army. Depending on the rank of what he tries to summon, the extraction could fail. He gets an idea. Turning toward Egress, he tries to subjugate the Knight Commander. The first 2 attempts fail, but after a persuasive motivational speech, the 3rd time's the charm. With this new ability, it looks like he'll no longer be solo leveling. Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.